What's going on, Port fans? Welcome back to another video on my channel, and this week we're going to review Port Adelaide's round 17 clash against the Fremantle Dockers. It happened on Sunday night over in Perth. It was a game we will never remember again, and it will possibly go down in history as one of our worst performances as an AFL side in the recent 5 or 6 years under the Ken Hinkley tenure. But let's have a look and see exactly how it happened and what panned out and who were the best over the weekend. As you can tell, it's not the best time at the moment to be a Port fan after coming off a great 5-game winning streak to put up a performance like that against a side that we should be beating, and we've been beating these sides the whole year. But unfortunately on the weekend we just got found out in every area of the game, and each to their own. And it was mentioned in the broadcast as well, basically our skill errors and our poor performance and poor mentality, our laziness across the ground from all positions, from different players that should stand up but they don't. It just got found out very easily by the Dockers on the weekend. I'm not going to take anything away from Fremantle. They were superb and they took advantage of a very, well, I won't say depleted, but I will say a very under strength Port side, especially in the second half. But Fremantle took advantage of that, and they were fantastic at taking advantage of our mistakes, our turnovers, and they really put us to the sword early. And you know, it was one of those games that you just won't remember. Both sides, Port Adelaide, their own worst enemy. It was a real struggle right from the beginning. Our skill errors were terrible. And what happened yesterday was the worst possible outcome we could have as a footy side on the day. Injuries to key players, lose from the outset. Just a horrible day in horrible conditions against a side that we should be beating, and we seem to have these glimpses of hope, and they just get tarnished away because of our poor performance as a footy side. It was a nightmare. Best way to describe yesterday was an absolute nightmare, and it's something that we as a footy club and as a footy side in general need to look at, because it could work in our favour. It could be a wake-up call. Maybe it's a loss that we needed to have. It could work against us, injuries to key players, and our season could turn on its head. It was going so rosy and fine until on Sunday, where we were horrible, absolutely horrible. And it doesn't help the fact that our two key players in Ryder and Robbie Gray are now out. Well, they didn't play the rest of the game. Ryder with a hip flexor, which could be a while, and then Robbie Gray could miss next week with concussion, depending on how he feels from being knocked out. So that's going to hurt us going forward, and I think as well with Jonas out, it's just going to be us being even more under strength and really just going to hurt us massively, especially with next week's game being so important now against the Giants at home. Our skill errors are awful, and that turned the game itself. We've literally gone backwards, and I've seen a lot of supporters state that, you know, our kicking, our handballing, just overusing the ball. Just be more direct. It's not that hard. I don't know how they can't see it as coaches. Whereas if you be more direct, Fremantle will just banging it in, getting the contest, and more often than not, they were winning that contest. But we decided to play the ball right up to the goal square, like in soccer. Right up to the square. You just want to walk it across the line. You can't do that as a footy side. You've got to be more direct. You've got to hit targets. And we started to do that in the second half. You know, the likes of Watts was leading well. Boat kicked a goal from a set shot. Sammy Gray, Power Pepper. We started to look and open up our eyes. But once again, our skill errors, our poor kicking, our horrible disposal efficiency was 62%, one of the worst of the year, with 84 turnovers in total as well. That's deplorable for a top 4 side. Deplorable. And you can't go into a game like that and then come out and say, well, we tried. Look, every footy player tries. But you cannot back that up. You cannot say to someone, look, yeah, I tried my best. You might have tried your best, but it was horrible. And I'm not going to hold back because, you know, it's all going to be rosy and happy and we're all going to move on to next week, which we will, and we'll, regroup ourselves and come back firing next week. The point is, though, if you don't dissect these games properly, you're not gonna improve. A loss like this shows our weaknesses more than anything. Each weakness that we had, we've pinpointed as supporters. We know what our weaknesses are, and Fremantle exploited them on Sunday. If you're a coach and you're sitting and you're thinking this game plan is not working, and you change a few things up, which we did. We put Ebert in the forward line, Boak went in more into the midfield. Those key players did stand up, but Ebert's not a forward. Ebert should be in the grunt of the. If you're having trouble, Ebert should be in that middle. If it's not working with Pepper and Rockcliffe and Wines and whoever else is running in there, take him out, put Ebert in, put Boak in, change it up. Don't stick with the same game plan and hope for it just be all rosy and happily work out, because it doesn't happen all the time, and it happened yesterday. It did not work. There was no pressure to be seen. There was nothing from our forwards. No efficiency going inside 50 whatsoever. We did have 39 inside 50s, and we scored from, I think, 50... What was it? I think we had 15 set shots. We went at like 40% or something going inside 50. I mean, Fremantle outplayed us around the contest, and that pressure was not there to be seen. They got it out the back. Our players just moved up to the ball, and there was no set play going around the contest. They got more clearances early on, and we did end up winning the clearances by a couple, but they were empty clearances, if you know what I mean. They were not used effectively, and they were just bombed away compared to Fremantle, who efficiently used and executed their clearances properly, and that's what got them the set shot, kicks at goal. They got their set players right, and just key players stood up at the moment, like Mundy. Walters in the end stood up. Stephen Giro, who's a great young gun for Fremantle, and for them to end up with 58 inside 50s, we only lose by 8 points. It's just embarrassing. That's all I can say. And it started off from Thursday night from selection. I'm sick of these changes that we just feel like we need to have. If there's a forced change it up. Jonas for Hompt. That's all you had to do. Maybe, okay, Johnson comes out for Sam Gray. Sam Gray's fit enough. He can come back in. 2 changes. You don't then end up taking out Drengo for Carl Amon, who, sure, had a great game in the SANFL. You don't reward that when Drengo's in fine form. And his pace on the weekend, Carl Amon, did not make a difference, especially when his kicks from out on the full every second time. Come on, Ken. Really, you've just got to hit... Selection's been pretty good this year. And with that, selection on the weekend, Trengove did not deserve to go out, and it showed. He was stiff, and he was best on ground in the Magpies game, who also embarrassing loss to the bottom-ranked side and the Crows Sandful side. Just a horrible weekend for Port Adelaide, and it's hard to talk about, but I know as a supporter you're going to look at it in different ways. You're either going to look at it the positive way or the negative way, and I know it's hard not to dismiss the negative way because it's very easily to, digress on that, and, we thought maybe 6 in a row was on the cards, and it was, and we blew it. We blew a massive chance. But we're going to look at it positively, I guess, and you think, well, that's our second loss from the bye. It's our third loss in, I think, 9 games. We've 6-3, and now we're 11-5 with 6 weeks to go. Top 4's not out of the question, but we've got to make the most of it, and we've got to turn things around, and that will possibly be without Ryder or Gray for next week. Alright, let's look at the votes for this week. It was hard, really, really hard to pick voters for this week's game, but I'm just going to run through it quickly. These 3 stood out for me on the weekend. 1 vote goes to Sam Powell-Pepper. He had 28 disposals, kicked a crucial goal in the third quarter, and his presence around the ground was good. And he just fought hard at every contest and didn't give up, which was good to see from the young gun. 2 votes goes to Chad Wingard. He's in a very good patch of form at the moment. 24 disposals, 2 goals, 14 of them contested possessions as well, and he had 7 clearances, the most for any Port player. So Chaddy's in a bit of form at the moment. I'm really liking him in the midfield. And 3 votes goes to Ollie Wines. He was a star on the weekend. Finally back into some good form, and he had 30 disposals, 7 tackles, 15 of them contested possessions too, 5 clearances and had an impact all day when others didn't stand up at all. And you'd like to see a few more different names popping up every now and then, but they didn't on the weekend, and hopefully that changes next week. And that wraps up this review for this week, Port fans. It's been a disappointing weekend for both SANFL and Port Adelaide in the AFL. It's just been one of those weeks, I guess. You've got to have a disappointment somehow, and probably can tell in my voice that I'm not impressed overly, but we'll move on. The Giants on Sunday twilight at home, so get there, support the boys, and maybe we can put our season back on track and push for that top 4 spot and look ahead to finals. But at the moment, it's a little bit disappointing, but we'll move on. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new for plenty more Port Adelaide content coming to you on a weekly basis. These reviews, previews, vlogs as well from all home games, and a few player chats from our open trainings. The Ports podcast as well, 8 PM every Wednesday night. Make sure you tune in through Spreaker on Port Fan Radio. Speaking of Spreaker, anyone that's listening to this on Spreaker at the moment, thank you very much for tuning in to the Pair podcast. I really appreciate all the support. And my new podcast with a few footy mates on from Instagram, the Footy Chat podcast. The link is in the comment section below. Give us a follow on Twitter or Facebook. The new podcast should be out tonight, so make sure you enjoy that. Thank you very much for watching, Port fans. My name is Anthony, and as always, come the Pair.